These weren't her favorite moments here on Earth. On the mountaintop, Lady Baghead crouched with her hands over her ears and her head between her knees, attempting to block out all the intense hate the celebrating people below were emitting. She kept one foot on Hammerhands, pinning him to the trash. Hammerhands didn't like this time either. He just wanted to smash people. The giant, however, understood these times were necessary. You can't shove human hate down for too long without it building up enough pressure to explode. And when uncontrolled, that explosion could lead to all the terrible things she had to endure in her past. In this environment of celebration, however, people let out their inner demons in the tamest of ways. Inside the people's hearts, a fire raged so bright it burned Lady Baghead's emotional sensors. But when presented with the outlet of partying, all that ire amounted to simple drunkenness, mundane fucking, and at worst, mindless destruction of their own belongings. Sure, she had to deal with an inordinate amount of emotional bombardment, but it was a small price to pay for the much larger share of time where people were well controlled. Here and now, the humans were allowed to rage for all the wrong reasons. The followers of Baghead weren't a fan of this time either. They despised how much the average city idiot took credit for what the bag-headed ones believed they alone worked so hard to accomplish. A city of uncontrolled morons running around screaming, "We did it!" as they aggressively cheersed and chugged sludgy beers they didn't deserve to imbibe, and messily hate-fucked each other while undeserving of coming anywhere close to conceiving another worthless human being. They didn't feel Lady Baghead. They didn't help capture her tormentor. The commoners fed off the gains the more pious worked for, never giving the followers the credit they deserved. And then there was the whole other fact that despite not being able to see her, they truly did feel what their invisible god felt. Her bombardment of emotion was their bombardment of emotion, and it hurt much more when applied to a weak human brain. During celebrations, the followers receded into the deep bowels of the city. They had to put themselves in restraints to keep themselves from tearing their own eyes and ears out in hopes to not feel what she felt anymore. It was during these times, the times when the city came closest to falling to chaos, Lady Baghead remembered her past all too well. It is important to inform you here, Lady Baghead isn't evil. Sure, if you've been following this whole story in the way it's been presented, she certainly would seem so. But desperation is often confused for evil. Lady Baghead actually cared very much. If people could see her and get to know her, they probably would think she cared too much, in fact. Unfortunately, care can be violently lost in translation. You see, a long time ago, when the universe chose to create this being, it crammed all the empathy it could manage into her. The entirety of space and time painstakingly pulled every empathetic emotion it could find inside itself and weave them through the pores of galaxies to the one it was creating. There was a want for someone loving, an entity that could take care of the rest of the beings it came in contact with. Someone that could understand the micro beings of every world, while the vast universe was occupied with macro things occurring in its vastness. Unfortunately, the universe's bigness was so, well, big that it couldn't create a creature small enough to walk among them like them. In her early years, Lady Baghead was sent from planet to planet feeling everything any beings had to offer. She absorbed their desires, their needs, their wants, their unhappiness. The giant yearned to help them sort out their problems, but their cares were too varied and too small for her to figure out on her own. For instance, a being as large as her had a hard time understanding why some creatures' hearts broke after only months in a relationship. Especially when these creatures' entire lives seemed shorter than the relationship itself when compared to the span of the species' existence. She tried to be as gentle and delicate as possible, but most often her attempts to get involved resulted in catastrophic changes for the worse. If they were fighting over a need for water, she'd send rain. But even trying to send a tiny drop sent monsoons raging through the world. If two groups of the same species couldn't get along, she raised mountains to separate the clans. Mudslides and volcanoes ended their bickering quickly. She even tried to whisper solutions into the ears of a couple alien sects. Their brains exploded upon hearing her booming voice. She finally gave in to her inability to help. She gave up on them all and let what would be. She watched as Planet 914, full of globular, sluggish creatures, poured their equivalent of salt on one another, causing them all to dry out into empty, dead husks. She was sent to Gruul-Zin L, yes, that Gruul-Zin L, where she watched as the highly flammable beings of the planet set each other aflame over a small patch of land that accounted for merely 1/1,000,000th of their planet's space. She felt their individual suffering from their destruction, followed by their all-too-late guilt as each species petered out into non-existence. She watched as identical creatures and cultures condemned one another for no reason other than self-hatred or insecurity, and felt the futility of life. Lady Baghead saw it all and could do nothing about it. All she could do was wait for the universe to send her to her next unique hell. She felt utterly alone and craved an end to the endless emotional screams of each planet. So she did what any sane being stuck in an insane situation would do. She cut off her ears, she gouged out her eyes. She desperately wanted to stop seeing and hearing their pain. Unfortunately, the universe had deliberately created her to understand no matter what condition she was in. She still heard the living's cries, she still saw their atrocities, but now on top of it all, she looked and felt like a goddamn freak as well. She tried to convince herself that it didn't matter. After all, no one saw her. No one was able to partake in the gruesome visage that was her face. Her hell was her own, and there was no one to share her misery. But when misery has no company, misery becomes its own worst best friend. The self-made freak show threw her eyes and ears in a sack and waited for the universe to send her to the next planet of pain. She sent rains and fires throughout the planet she was sent to next in hopes of speeding up the process. She no longer cared to search for beings to help, but instead hoped to escape and forget. 10 years the universe left her there, without another soul on the planet. The silence was maddening. She cried day and night, explaining to no one how sorry she was, how wrong she had been. 10 years is a long time. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, the entirety of space and time showed mercy, and Lady Baghead awoke on Earth. What a miserable group of meat sacks we were. Are. The moment she opened her eyes, she was crippled by the sheer volume of emotions constantly thrown out by the inhabitants. She watched as we destroyed everything around us and consumed all. We deforested the forests, we drained the watering holes of water, we salted all the meats. Then, when there wasn't anything left to consume, she watched as we turned on each other. Wars over the empty spaces we created were waged. Bombs to eradicate competition were dropped. The fires. Oh, the fires. But we didn't go softly into that good night. No, there were just too many of us. We covered the lands. We got in each other's way. We refused to fade. The world crumbled during the war to end all wars. Yet something spawned from that hostility that all man would soon regret. With so much seething rage in the world, the boom tubes couldn't help but infuse their ammo with more and more of it. Then one day, the last day of the war, when the trajectories were just right and the hate had reached a peak, a monster was born. As the dust cleared in the middle of the battlefield where multiple explosives sent from all nations involved collided, a monstrosity emerged from its wake. We had birthed Hammerhands. From the moment Hammerhands was born, he devoured everything in sight, mouth agape, panting as he tumbled across the lands. Hammerhands was feared by all. Lady Baghead felt the people's pain along with Hammerhands' hate. But she felt something different in this new being. She felt unbridled, indiscerning hunger. She did not like this reasonless havoc. She did not like his constant hate. It reminded her of her own reasonless havoc that destroyed the last world she was sent to, and she did not want to experience those 10 years of loneliness again. Lady Baghead laid atop a mountain of trash that would soon become the middle of a grand city, the last city. And while frantically watching chaos ravage another world, she noticed something odd. Hammerhands was standing at the base of the trash heap and looking right back up at her. Lady Baghead froze. Could he see her? Was she not alone? She quickly climbed down the mountain and hid behind it, chest beating wildly and standing at the edge of a calm, greasy lake. She looked down and saw her mangled face's reflection. She instantly puked. Her mutilated visage mirrored her heavy guilt. Hammerhands was her chance to have an acquaintance. She dared even think, a friend? What a brutish friend, though. He would have to learn from the mistakes she made in the past. But how could she ever make a friend looking the way she did? She hated herself more than ever at that moment. But now was not the time to have a pity party. Her need for friendship outweighed her conditioned self-loathing. Hammerhands was going to be her friend, whether he liked it or not. So the Universal Traveler opened her sack, took out her eyes and ears, and placed them neatly in the sockets of a nearby camel skull long dead to the world. Trash beetles burrowed in the fissures of its skull, nesting their neon green larvae. Ashamed of what she'd done to her face all those years ago, she placed her bag over her head and set around the mountain to meet her first ever friend. On the other side of the mountain, she had piqued Hammerhand's curiosity as well. And as he saw her make her way down the back of the mountain, he began his own journey around the crag. When they finally met, they stopped dead in their tracks. As she towered over her new acquaintance, she still couldn't believe any being could experience her.
Can you hear me?
Hammerhands nodded his head as he drooled all over himself.
Can you see me?
Hammerhands nodded again.
Good.
Instantly, Lady Baghead pinned the tiny monstrosity to the ground with her foot and pulled a thread and needle from her pocket. The ball of hate snapped and tongued at her, trying to get a taste as the giant licked the thread and pushed it through the eye of the needle.
You are mine. And now there will be rules. We will do great things together and keep these miserable little beings in line. But you need some control, my little wrecking ball of pain. Take it from me, I've made these mistakes before. This is for your own good. Now, if you could, please smile for me. We'll sew this problem up nicely.
Design yourself accordingly. Belief is all you need. As long as you can reconfigure yourself externally. Just stitch and sew till they are so my body show I'm so beautiful. Push the envelope, push so I can cope. Will this change my soul? Push till we make it so, 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 make it so. Gonna get myself a nice taut complexion, perhaps due to injection. No, do what you gotta do. 'Cause what are we if we're not at our best? Ignored and lonely, never mind the rest. Don't we all want success in excess? Do what you gotta do. Just stitch and sew till they are so my body show I'm so beautiful. Push the envelope, push so I can cope. Will this change my soul? Push till we make it so, 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 make it so. Make it so you're just like all the ones you believe. Make it so you're just like all the ones you deceive. Make it so you're just like all the ones you believe. Make it so, make it so, make it so. You can never be wrong if it's all along. so, make it so, make it so.